Did a false accusation backfire on the accuser? The accuser ruined his family's life. My friend James was accused of something terrible which didn't end well for the person who made the allegation. James had probably the worst lie told about him by the 13-year-old son of his then girlfriend. They'd been together for approximately 9 months, and up until that point, he'd had a great relationship with the son. However, the son obviously missed the good old days when he had his mother all to himself, and it would appear that nostalgia got the better of him. It started off with little allegations against James, like he'd gotten angry at the boy and raised his voice. These were dismissed immediately by the mother, as she had been in the same room or within earshot when the incidents were alleged to have occurred. As these allegations were baseless and always failed to land, the son upped the ante somewhat and told his mother that he felt physically threatened by James. James is the type of guy who always walks around with a smile on his face and is liked by all. I have known him for over 25 years and have never seen him get into a fight or raise his voice or ever get angry with anyone, and especially not a child. He is one of life's gentle souls. I honestly believe the world would be a better place if there were more people like him in it. He was, however, concerned and upset about the allegations, and he tied himself in knots trying to figure out why the boy was saying these things about him. Each time he spoke to his then girlfriend about it, she would play it all down and tell him that he shouldn't worry, as children lie and exaggerate all the time. Apparently, for some reason she never spoke to the son about what the implications of lying could have, and I am certain that had she done, what happened next would have been avoided. The son went away one weekend to stay with his grandparents, his father's parents. James had a day out planned with his girlfriend on the Saturday, but the local constabulary had other ideas and they swooped in and arrested him, as they had received a complaint from the grandparents that James had been physically abusing the boy. He was handcuffed, taken away, and spent the day and night in the cells before being released under investigation. He could not go to his girlfriend, so he stayed with me, and I went to collect some clothes and his work swipe card. Although this was futile, as he was immediately suspended from his college lecturing job for safeguarding reasons. The girlfriend was home when I called around, and despite being upset and absolutely certain of his innocence, she, to me, didn't fully understand the ramifications of the false allegations. Her attitude was, "We know he's innocent, so the police will know too. They understand that children lie and exaggerate all the time." When I returned home, I found James was applying some form of rudimentary first aid to himself. He had stepped out of the house to get some milk and was accosted by the boy's father. I have absolutely no idea how he knew where I lived or that James was staying with me, but he found him nonetheless and administered some rough justice on him. James tried to reason with him, but the father was having none of it, and broke his nose and fractured his eye socket for good measure. The girlfriend's parents, who incidentally loved James and were thrilled that she had finally found someone decent, had their suspicions about the boy's allegations, and decided to gently question him themselves. The boy eventually told the truth when he was informed that his father would almost certainly be kicked out of the army for assaulting James in response to the allegation he'd made. He admitted that he'd made the whole thing up as he was jealous that he had to share his mother with someone else, as he liked having her all to himself. He also admitted that he liked having complete control over his mother, and he saw James' arrival as a threat to the status quo, so he hatched a plan to get rid of him and told his other grandparents that he'd been assaulted by James. They understandably hit the roof and pointed out to him that he was almost 14 years old and was old enough to know that lies can have far-reaching consequences. They immediately marched him to the police station, where he tearfully withdrew his allegation and informed them that he'd invented the whole thing. He admitted that James had never laid a finger on him nor raised his voice or had shown any form of aggression towards him. The investigating officer severely reprimanded the boy and told him he would remember his name for future reference should they cross paths when he became an adult. Unfortunately, despite the lie being exposed, the college decided to terminate James' contract regardless, again citing safeguarding. He took them to a tribunal and won the case. He was in line for a hefty payout, but pleaded with them to let him continue to teach, and he dropped the whole thing. Sadly, they wouldn't see sense, and despite the compensation, his career went up in smoke. The students lost a fine lecturer, and the institution was poorer for no longer having such an asset as James. The father was indeed kicked out of the army and was also charged with assault, which is ironic considering this was the charge leveled at James, and was given a suspended sentence, which of course means he will carry that wherever he goes, and has now struggled to find employment. The mother's parents were rightfully disgusted that their grandchild could do such a thing and cut him out of the will. This was bad news for the boy, as they are very wealthy business people, and he was looking forward to living off their fortune so that he didn't have to worry about minor inconveniences such as working for a living. They saw James how we all see him, a thoroughly decent person, who loved that woman and her son with all his heart. They were devastated that the selfish actions of her son had stolen her happiness, and robbed her of the man that they had always hoped that she would find. The grandparents on the other side, the ones who called the police, sought James out and apologized to him, which was decent of them. The relationship they now have with their former daughter-in-law is non-existent, as she resents them for not speaking to her in the first instance, which of course could have prevented the chain reaction that was about to follow. They hardly see their grandson anymore, as they were also disgusted by his lie and his selfishness. James, and this is probably an indication of the type of person he is, considered getting back with the mother, but realized that sometimes some things are just too broken to mend. She is a single mother again, and I have seen her in the street on occasion. She is devastated at what happened, and wished things were how they were. Unfortunately for her, she is unlikely to find anyone else anytime soon, as her name is radioactive to prospective partners due to her son's lie. She told me that she's been on a few dates since, but as soon as the guy hears what happened in her last relationship, they end it pretty much immediately. She told me she loves her son regardless, just hates the lie that he told, which is fair. James has found work as a personal tutor and is also a contributor to a few business journals. He's doing okay. but is still gutted about what happened. He feels that despite his innocence, he is not entirely without fault, that perhaps he shouldn't have been so affectionate to the mother when the boy was around, as it probably fueled his jealousy. Not a happy ending for anyone involved, and this all came about because of one teenager's lie. Very sad indeed.